Sara dragged herself through the door of her small apartment, her legs aching from a long day at work. Dropping her bag by the couch, she decided she deserved a treat. Scrolling through her favorite delivery app, she ordered her usual, a mushroom and extra cheese pizza. It was her go-to comfort after grueling days like this. 45 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Grabbing her wallet, Sara opened the door. The man standing there wasn't what she had expected. He was tall, unnervingly tall, with sunken eyes and a tight, crooked smile. The dark gloves on his hands gripped the pizza box with almost deliberate force. "Here's your order," he said in a low, gravelly voice. Sara hesitated before taking the box. Something about him set her nerves on edge, but she forced a polite smile. "Thanks. How much?" Before she could finish, the man stepped back, his smile widening unnaturally. "It's already taken care of," he murmured. Confused, Sara looked down at the box in her hands. Her breath hitched. Written across the lid in smeared red ink were the words, "This isn't your pizza." "What does this mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man tilted his head, his smile stretching even further. "Open it and you'll understand," he whispered. Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked away, disappearing down the hallway. Sara stared after him, a chill creeping up her spine. Shutting the door, she locked it quickly and pressed her back against it, trying to shake the unease that clung to her. Her apartment, usually her sanctuary, felt suffocatingly quiet. She placed the pizza box on the kitchen counter and stared at it. Her instincts told her to leave it alone, but her curiosity gnawed at her. Finally, she lifted the lid. Inside, there was no pizza, only a small silver key sitting on a folded piece of paper. Sara's stomach turned as she picked up the note, her hands trembling. "If you want to live, run, now." A sudden draft swept through the room, chilling her to the bone. Her eyes darted to the windows. They were all closed. That was when she heard it, the creak of footsteps upstairs. Her heart stopped. She lived alone. The sound grew louder, slow and deliberate, as if whoever was up there wanted her to know they were coming. Grabbing a kitchen knife, Sara edged toward the stairs, her breath shallow and uneven. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she couldn't bring herself to leave. She needed to know who or what was in her home. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs and paused. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice cracking. No response. Then the footsteps resumed, descending one deliberate step at a time. Sara's grip on the knife tightened, her knees threatening to buckle, and then she saw it. It wasn't a person. The delivery man emerged from the shadows at the top of the stairs, but he wasn't the same as before. His face was distorted, his pale skin stretched tight over sharp, angular bones. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and his crooked smile had twisted into something far more grotesque. "You shouldn't have opened the box," he rasped, his voice echoing unnaturally. Sara stumbled back, clutching the knife. "What do you want?" He tilted his head, his grin widening to reveal rows of jagged teeth. "The key," he said simply. "It doesn't belong to you." Her eyes darted to the counter, where the silver key still rested. She realized it might be her only way out. Summoning every ounce of courage, Sara bolted for the key. The man let out a guttural growl and lunged after her, his movements unnaturally fast. She snatched the key and darted toward the front door, fumbling to fit it into the lock. The man, or whatever he was right behind her. His clawed hands swiped at her, missing her by mere inches. The key finally turned, and the door flew open. Without thinking, Sara ran out into the street, her screams piercing the night. But when she turned back, her heart dropped. Her house was gone. A figure, humanoid but impossibly tall, was walking toward her. Its steps were slow and deliberate, but each one brought it unnaturally closer, as if it was bending the space between them. Sara's grip on the knife tightened. "Stay back!" she shouted, but her voice was swallowed by the wind. The figure stopped a few feet away. It was cloaked in shadow, its face hidden, but its presence was overwhelming, suffocating. When it spoke, its voice was a chorus of echoes filling the air around her. "You took the key," it said. "Now you bear the burden." "What burden? What is this place?" Sara demanded, her voice cracking. The figure extended a long skeletal hand, pointing to the horizon. The fog parted, revealing a massive, crumbling fortress. Its spires reached into the red sky, and its walls were covered in the same glowing symbols as the door. The answers you seek lie there, the figure said. But beware, the truth is not what you hope it to be. Before Sara could respond, the figure dissolved into the wind, leaving her alone in the desolate landscape. She turned toward the fortress, her heart pounding. She didn't know what waited for her there, but she had no choice. The whispers had led her here, the key had unlocked this world, and now she had to finish what had been started. With the knife in one hand and the key in the other, Sara began her journey toward the fortress, each step carrying her closer to the unknown. The walk to the fortress felt endless, each step sinking into the cracked ashen ground. The air grew colder, the wind sharper, carrying with it faint whispers, taunts, warnings, or cries for help. Sara couldn't tell anymore. The fortress loomed larger with every step, its dark spires piercing the blood-red sky, its glowing symbols pulsing like a heartbeat. As she reached the massive iron gates, they groaned open on their own, revealing a cavernous hall drenched in shadow. The air inside was thick, humming with an unnatural energy. The symbols on the walls shimmered, twisting and rearranging themselves as if they were alive. In the center of the hall was a pedestal, and atop it rested a black, ornate box, similar to the pizza box but far more menacing. The moment Sara saw it, she knew. This was what the key was meant to open. She hesitated, the weight of the key suddenly unbearable in her hand. The whispers returned, louder now, screaming at her, "Don't open it! You must! It's the end! It's the beginning!" Her head spun, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. But she had come too far to turn back. She approached the pedestal, her steps echoing in the silent hall. With trembling hands, she fit the key into the lock and turned it. The box clicked open. At first, there was nothing, just an empty black void inside. But then the shadows began to rise, spiraling out of the box like smoke. They twisted and writhed, forming shapes, faces, eyes, mouths, all screaming in silent agony. The hall filled with a deafening roar as the shadows swirled around her. From the center of the chaos, a voice emerged, deep and resonant, shaking the very ground. "You have set me free." The shadows coalesced into a towering figure with burning eyes and a wicked grin. It was neither human nor beast, but something ancient, something that had been trapped for eons. Its gaze locked onto Sara, and she felt the weight of its power pressing down on her soul. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos. The creature leaned closer, its grin widening. "Your deliverer," it said, "and your curse." Before Sara could react, the creature reached out and touched her forehead with one clawed finger. Pain exploded in her mind, memories and visions flooding her consciousness. A world consumed by darkness, a universe bending to the creature's will, and at the center of it all, her. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for air as the visions subsided. When she opened her eyes, the creature was gone, the hall empty. But something was different. The symbols on the walls now glowed faintly on her skin, etched into her arms like a brand. And the whispers, they were inside her now, a constant, unrelenting chorus. Sara staggered to her feet, the box now sealed and the key cold in her hand. She stumbled out of the fortress, back into the wasteland, and looked up at the blood-red sky. The world around her shifted and twisted, and she realized with chilling clarity she hadn't unlocked freedom. She had become the key, the anchor for something far more terrifying. As the ground cracked beneath her feet and the wind howled with the voices of the damned, Sara let out a scream that echoed into the void. This was her new reality. She wasn't just part of the game anymore. She was the game, and it had only just begun.